Well, hello and welcome. Today I want to show you how I convert a photograph into a vibrant line and wash study. This is Robin Hood's Bay on the east coast of Yorkshire, looking down King Street. It was a rather dull day, so there is an absence of light and shadows which I am keen to incorporate into my painting. You can take a screenshot of this picture for reference or even use it as a tracing if you like. So there's my drawing. It is quite a complicated thing. There are several vanishing points and the perspective is really awkward, so it's quite difficult to get that right. Like I said before, you could always trace this from a screenshot if you wish. So let's get started. My pen style is quite sketchy, so I don't like to try and get all my lines really straight. I'm going to use two grades of Unipin pen. I'm going to use a 0.3 for the background features and a 0.7. Just 1 or 2 points before I start sketching. We've got this headland in the background, which is Ravenscar, and I'm not going to draw either the horizon or the headland with the pen because they're distant and quite pale. So I'm just going to put those on with the paint. Now I've taken quite a few things out from the original photograph. I've just put one boat in here and I've removed lots of clutter, old tyres and another boat here and there. I've really simplified it to keep that area free of clutter. I've got this person standing here, so the light is going to come in from the right, which is sort of from the west, so how it would be perhaps in the evening, and the light is two lines I've just drawn on here with my pencil. And they are where the light is going to come through. So this wall will be lit up and this will be in shadow down here and this will be in shadow here. So that's the plan. Remember that all of this pencil has got to be raised when we've finished sketching with the pen. So it's a good idea to use a soft pencil and perhaps not press on too hard. So whilst the music is playing, I'm going to be sketching this up with my pen. Okay, so I think I've pretty much finished the line drawing now, and I've put the eraser across the whole picture. You might just be able to make out the headland there in the distance. I've deliberately not put too much detail down the edge here with the brickwork. It's up to you. You can take it right up to the edge if you want. but I'm going to try and put the paint on in a vignette style, which means that I'm not going to paint right up to the edge of the picture. So let's get started with the sky. I'm going to use the mini hake and just throw on some water, and this is just a case of just covering that area of the sky there, and it's a sunny day, but there might be a few wispy clouds around. So this is a very simple idea of just wetting the area there, and just pop the mini hake, push it into the cerulean blue I've got there on the palette, and we'll just flick that around in little patches, leaving some white spaces like that. Leave it fairly pale at the top, maybe just a touch more, a little bit stronger. And really the most important thing is just to get the paint on there and then just leave it to its own devices. Just let it settle. A little hair there which I've just managed to flick off, and that'll do nicely. So I'm going to leave that to settle naturally, and then put the hairdryer on it. So I've dried that off, and I'm just going to put the sea in here. Now the sea won't be completely blue, but it will be reflecting some of that colour from the sky. I've got a mix here which you've probably seen me use often if you've seen my videos before. This is ultramarine and light red. This gives us a lovely sort of purple colour. And I'm just going to use a little tinge of that with some of the cerulean blue in the sea. So I'm going to use my number 8 spearhead brush. We get plenty of water in the brush. I think I might just, because it's a warm day here, I think I might just put a bit of water on this first. So I've just put a little tinge of water onto the area of the sea. I can go into my cerulean now and just sweep some of that across there. So the water is obviously moving, there's waves down there, so I don't want it just to be a solid block of colour. So let's just make it a little bit stronger than the sky. There we go, that's looking good now. And then I'm just going to roll across a few lines, just gentle lines of the purple colour I've just mixed, or the plum colour, whichever you want to call it. And that just gives it a little variegation of colour and will look absolutely great. That just looks like the sea sort of waving and rolling in the background. Okay, that's dry, so I'm going to use my spearhead number 6 just to paint that headland in the distance. This is the plum colour with plenty of water in it, and I'm just going to start at this point here, and I'm going to fill up the end of the headland first, all of it, rather than paint the shape of it. And I'm just going to drag that colour along from right to left. I'm just going to bring it across now. There's enough paint there, I think, for me to finish that off. And I'll come down here, and if you end up with a little blob of paint at the end, you can just pinch the brush and just nip it out with what's known as a thirsty brush. So I'm going to build up the tones from the rest of this now, according to how strong they are. So the obvious first place really to paint is the road and the pavement on either side, and do those in a really light colour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a wash of the very pale plum colour or grey purple colour that we used for the headland, and a little bit that was in the sea, and I'm going to fill up a number 10. This is my number 10 spearhead. I'm going to fill that up with water and pick up a little of that plum colour, and this is going to be the colour of the road. So if I just paint that across there, you can see that the brush is delivering lots of colour, lots of water, and I'm going to fade it when I get to here. So I'm just going to sort of end it there like that, rather roughly, so that we're not painting right up to the edge of the paper, so it just ends a little bit short. Now that looks a little bit too pale for me, so I'm just going to get some slightly stronger paint and just flick a little bit of that in as well. I don't want it too dark because I want it to look like there's light on here. Now that will fade as it dries. I'm just going to use the point of my number 6 just to drop a little in between where the double yellows are. There we are. Let's pop a little bit in there. Not so bothered around there. And then the pavement on either side, just stick some in here and in here. There we go. And then the pavement either side I'm going to change to a different colour, because in the photo it's more of a sandy colour. So I'm going to use some burnt umber instead. So I'm filling the number 10 with, again, with lots of water, and I'm just going to put some burnt umber across there. Let's see if we just go round the boat. There it is. You can see with a line and wash study how quickly you can actually paint. Leave a few little white flecks here and there. Let's continue that up here. There we go. The roofs in Robin Hood's Bay are quite red. So I'm going to use some burnt sienna. So I'm using my number 8 spearhead. Again, quite a lot of water. And we're just going to run a little bit of burnt sienna along that roof there. Again, I'm going to use leave a few little white patches, possibly just slightly stronger than that. That's better. I'll leave a few little white marks. Just always adds a little bit of sparkle to the picture. Like that. Okay, I've just popped a little bit of terracotta on that roof there. I'm just going to move on to these walls in the distance here. Now you can clearly see on the photograph that the upper wall is a little bit paler. So I'm just going to use a really light burnt umber on there. That's maybe a little bit stronger than that. I don't feel that that's quite dark enough. Let's put a few grubby patches in it. It is by the sea at the end of the day, so it's going to be a bit grubby. There we go. And then I'm just going to use, again, just put the tip of the brush into my plum, and we'll just flick in a few little patches of the plum, which will kind of blend away, but it'll make that wall look quite sort of grubby. And that looks really good. Now we can see that the white face of the building is coming out quite nicely. We'll need a little bit of paint on this inside wall of that as well. And again, maybe just a touch darker. There we go. So we'll immediately just work towards the wall below now. So I'm going to just use the number 8 again. This time I'm going to use some stronger burnt umber. So this is, I've left a little white line there as well. These little white lines, they might not necessarily exist in nature, but they do look really good. So what I'm doing is I'm using some slightly stronger paint, as you can see, and I'm just going to go round the boat, round those posts. It's a beauty about line and wash. You don't have to be quite so careful with the paint. And I'm just going to get a little bit of the plum, and we'll run that in as well. And that darkens it that little bit more. Definitely brings out a difference in the colour between the two parts of the wall, the lower part and the upper part, and it brings out top of those posts and the boat really nicely just there. We'll just slip a little bit of terracotta on this roof. It is actually a slate roof, but I prefer the idea that it's terracotta. It matches up with the other one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the number 10 again, and I'm going to fill up with the burnt umber again, lots of water, big brush full of water, and I'm going to run some paint now down this wall here. And again, I'm going to deliberately leave some white down that left-hand outside edge. Now this wall is catching the light, so this one will be fairly pale compared to the one on this side, which will be in shadow. And again, just to give the wall a slight variation of shade and colour, I'm going to touch in a little of the plum as well. But you can see the beauty of painting this way is just how quickly you can run your colour in without being too precise. That's good. We'll stick a bit of colour on that chimney up there. Now the front edge will be quite pale here, and the side will be quite a bit darker, so I'm just going to use some stronger paint just down that left hand side because that will be in shadow. This right hand wall, again, if you look at the photograph, you can actually see the light coloured mortar in between the stones. So if we're really clever here, what we can do is we can run a pale colour. This is the number 10 brush with burnt umber and lots of water. I'm just going to run a pale colour all the way across this wall. Again, leaving the outside edge here unpainted. Keep filling the brush here. And once we've got that on, we'll dry that off with a hairdryer. So I'm going to paint all of the stones now on this right hand wall, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint most of the ones on the left hand side individually, leaving a little white space where the mortar is. But I'm going to vary the colour of them a little bit. So I'm going to start, I'll just do a little cluster of them so that you won't want to watch me paint them all. So I've got my number 6 spearhead here, I've got some burnt umber. I'm just going to paint in, put that stone in, let's put that one in there, and I'll put that one in there. So if we paint them like that, so that's 3 that I've just done with the burnt umber, and I'll maybe just flick in a drop of burnt sienna here and there and a little bit of the plum. Now, as you can see, these stones here are much darker than the ones on the other side. They're going to be much stronger, which is what we need to portray the light. So let's carry on with that little cluster. I'll use burnt umber again there. I'll put some burnt umber on that one, so you can see there's a little bit of light now in between each one, just to make it look like the mortar. And on these, I'm going to maybe just drop a touch more of the plum in. And if you keep these nice and wet as you're painting them, you can keep dropping in a little bit of other colour. Now this one here, for example, I'm going to turn that stone there, brick, stone, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to turn that into a vignette. So that's just half a brick, like that. So I shall continue painting those. In fact, I might start one or two with the burnt sienna. Let's try it and see how it looks. Let's pop. There we are. So that's burnt sienna instead. We'll do that one in burnt sienna, that one in burnt sienna, and add a touch of the plum to that. That actually looks nice because it's a slightly different colour. And then we'll do that one again and sort of fade it to the edge. So what we'll end up with is a lovely crisp front edge with some nicely formed stones fading as they come out to the side. The inside recess of this window probably wants to be a little bit darker, so I'll just do that with some strong burnt umber. We'll just run that down there, like that. There we go. And then the front edge of the lintel we'll just do with a little bit of burnt umber. And the underside of the lintel is really strong. I'm just going to use the really strong plum colour for that. Right, and the underside of that lintel there. We'll just strike that straight out the edge of the painting onto the tape. Same with this lintel here. Let's get some really lovely dark paint under there. And we'll just put a little bit of the burnt umber across the front of the lintel like that. And I'm just going to leave that window frame sort of white there because it looks quite effective. Just going to pop a little bit of terracotta on these pots. a bit of terracotta on that end and a little touch of the plum on the left hand side. Just makes them look like they're round in shape. And I'm just going to now put some shadows on the inside of the steps here, and I'm using the plum colour. And I think I might just leave the tops of them white so that they really look like they're catching the light. That looks really effective. What about the boat? I quite fancy the boat being cerulean blue, actually. Sort of helps continue the theme of the sea. So we'll just put a little bit of colour on the boat, and I'll just pop a little bit of the plum colour just on the underside and at the back there, just away from the light. I'll just drop that in and blend that away. So I'm just going to put some yellow on the double yellow lines here, but I don't want to overdo this. I've got some lemon yellow, but I'm using it quite watery. So if I start about here, and we'll stick a little bit of colour on the lines there, and it's just to represent really that they are double yellow lines. Just adds to the effect of the realism of the street scene itself. So the inside of the boat, if it's a fiberglass boat, might just have a little bit of a shadow in it. Let's just I'm just popping a little bit of water in there, and I'm just going to put a little bit of shadow on this side. Because if the light's coming in from the right, then the sort of stern end of the boat there might be catching the light, but this front end here might just be in shadow. So that'll do for the boat. That's looking okay. Stick a bit of paint on the mud guard and the tyre. Right, now we've got to start thinking about the light and the shadows and the darker bits. So I'm going to use my really strong plum colour now. So this is thicker, not much water in it. I'm going to use my number 6, and I'm just going to slash in some of the darker areas. So that's the underside of the gutters there, for example. And coming over onto this side, I want to get that gutter on there and the shady parts. There's a bit of a, let's just paint the top of that lamp with it as well. Top of that lamp. There's a bit of a fall pipe coming down this side here. So I'll just stick a bit of paint on that. Like that. And then these windows on this side, I've got to really get some colour in those, but I don't want to overdo this again. Not quite sure how to deal with that. I think I'm going to blank them all out with paint. I think it'll look better. Maybe just a little flash of light here and there. Yeah, I think that looks better. Now, these window frames on this side are black, so what I need is some ultramarine and some burnt sienna mixed together to give me a really dark grey colour. And I'm just going to fill the number 6 brush up with that, and we'll get in these really dark lintels and window frames here. Just a little flash of paint on the handrails, on the posts and the handrail. So I've just got a little bit of lemon yellow, a little bit of ultramarine, and we'll just bobble in a little bit of green on those flowers. What are they? Flowers? Shrubs? Doesn't matter. Just a little bit of green on there. Right, this is a crucial part of the painting because we're going to put some shadows in, and we've got to get the colour, the shadow colour right. So I'm going to use that colour that I used for the black bit, so this is ultramarine and burnt sienna mixed together. I'm going to show you the palette. Here it is, and I'm making sure that there's enough of it. So I've got my number 10 brush, lots of water as you can see, lots of paint. Let's put a little bit more of the burnt sienna in there. That's giving me a lovely warm grey colour. And I want to test it to see if it's the right colour. So I've got a bit of test paper here, and I'm just going to strike that across there like that. Is that enough? Is that giving me enough contrast? Yeah, I think it probably just about right. I'm actually a bit concerned that that's too grey, so I'm going to put a little bit more of the burnt sienna in it, which will strengthen it slightly. A little bit warmer. That's it, that's the colour. It's just a little bit warmer. But I've got to make sure there's enough of it. And what's really important now is that we don't end up with really dry, patchy, streaky brush marks. So I've got my number 10. And the shadow has got to go from the corner from about here across there. So let's do it, let's get it in. So that's there, underside of the boat. From about there now, straight across. That's all in shadow there. And then the shadow will go up, there's a little step there, the shadow might go up that step and then across there. So it's quite a brave mark that you've got to make with the brush. Now there's a little bit too much paint gathering at the bottom, so I can just squeeze my number 8 and just take a little bit of that out. You've got to be careful you don't have the brush too empty, because it might take too much out and then it'll go white. So I'm just keep squeezing the brush tip, just taking a little bit of paint out. And I've dribbled there, which I'm going to take off with a bit of kitchen towel. So I'm going to leave that. You noticed I just dribbled there, just to prove I'm human. Look, there we are. So that's that shadow. And then the other shadow comes from the bottom of the corner of the building across here, down here. So let's fill the brush. From there, it'll come across this curb. It'll just drop down it slightly. I'm going to pull it right the way across the double yellows. I'm painting it as quickly as I can, and then it'll kind of run up the other side like that. And now I've got to fill all of this space down here with this shadow. So I keep filling the brush and running it across like this, and I've got to do this now all the way to the bottom of the picture till it goes out of the bottom frame. And hopefully that will dry nice and smooth. We're going to have a shadow from here, from this post. Don't know what time of day it is, it's quite late, so there we are, there we've got that shadow there. We'll also have a shadow at the back of these pots. Right. We're going to have a shadow here from this post, going across there behind the person, and the person, there'll be a shadow from the person as well, and across there and up there. Okay, I've dried that off thoroughly. You may have noticed I've had to overpaint a few things here. So because I'm using Bockingford paper, I can now give that a little scrub with the brush like that. So I've just put some water in the brush, given that a scrub, and I can just take off a little bit of paint. Let's take a little bit of paint off the head as well, because I've painted right across the head. There we go. and just a little bit on these posts here. Let's put a little bit of colour down the left hand side of that post there, which is in the sun, just leaving the right hand edge of it white. Same with that post, but these two are in the shade, so there won't be a white right hand side. Right, what colour is this chap wearing? Let's make it, let's use some burnt sienna, because I think that'll look really nice. So we'll give him some burnt sienna and some denim trousers. So I'm going to use the right hand, leave the right hand edge of the jacket white there, look. And it'll just look like the sun is catching the right hand edge of the jacket. Just leaving the right hand edge of the leg without any paint on it. Just helps it look as if it's catching the light. Okay, there's the finished painting. I've decided not to do any more to that. As we're on the coast, I thought I'd add a few seagulls up there. Let's just pop a mount on it. Makes all the difference. So we can move the mount around a little just to get the right position, probably about there, just as the wall fades at the edge here, and these lovely little white energetic bits on this left hand side. Let's just drop it down to there, and there we go. I think that looks fine. So that's my line and wash study of Robin Hood's Bay. I hope you like that, and if you try it, I hope you have lots of success, and please do join me on another video.